What is fun? What is satisfaction? Because my game wasn't either of those things. I was watching Game Maker Toolkit's video about the game that he started making, and as well as being incredibly jealous of the incredible progress he seems to have made in just a few weeks, something I could only hope of doing if days were 30 hours long. But he also showed this diagram and spoke about his past experience with trying to develop games, but focusing too much on world development, art and conceptualization all far too early without prioritizing game design. Mark mentioned that he used to think that there were 5 pillars to game design and that each one was equal: gameplay, sound, art, music and story. Mark pointed out that this isn't completely true. Instead of it being 5 pillars, it's 4 pillars with a base. Without the base, of course, the whole thing would topple. The base is of course being gameplay. The thing is, games, they aren't movies or books or albums or galleries by themselves. They can be all those things, but really at the end of the day they are games. And so if they're not fun to play, even when you strip back the soundtrack and flashy art, at their core they still need to be fun to play. That's where I've been going wrong. So at 1 AM in the morning, laying in bed, I decided to scrap my game, somewhat. Of course, I'm still going to use almost all the systems and writing I've done, which is 80% of the effort I've put in anyway. But in terms of the core game, yeah, that's going to change a bit. I started by making a new prototype project in Unity, as well as deciding that it's actually going to be a 2D side-on platformer game, as opposed to something more top-down. I made this decision as I thought the addition of gravity made 2D games feel a bit more fluid, adding another dimension to the gameplay a lot of the time. Of course, this isn't always true. There are some really great fluid top-down games such as Hades or Hyper Light Drifter, but I just think it's going to be a little bit more easy to achieve something fun with gravity. Of course, it helps that I do like a lot of side-on games. Of course, not many people are going to buy any old platformer, especially when you can just play Celeste, then Celeste B-sides, then Celeste C-sides, then Celeste expansions, Celeste Pico 8 things that are free online, and then Hollow Knight twice. What I'm saying is I need some sort of gimmick, something that makes my game special. I couldn't think of anything straight away, so I ended up just stealing the bash mechanic from Ori and the Blind Forest to start off. I'd already made something similar for the Game Maker's Toolkit Game Jam back in August, so I was able to quickly use my code from that to mock up something that felt good. A bit of a screen shake and some particle effects later, and I had this, which was pretty fun. I also needed some variety if I wanted to make an entire game out of this sort of platforming. A few different ways to bash would be nice, so far I've come up with these 3, and I hope a few more ideas will come. The first is just from projectiles, so it's a nice risk since you could be hit by the projectiles and become damaged if you mistime the bash, and is very satisfying when you time it correctly. The second is from these blocks which are hanging from chains. Nice and simple, you can just bash off them and go flying. And the third is from these same blocks which you can find lying around on the ground. You can pick these up, which will slow down your player movement, limiting your speed, and then you can throw them again. They have reduced gravity, so it falls a bit slowly. You can then jump after them and then bash off of them. This is useful for getting quite up high and also adds some extra timing based gameplay. Put together, I made a few sample scenes that were definitely quite fun to play and were made all the more satisfying with some extra particle effects and screen shake. So that's what I have so far gameplay wise. I kinda wanted to make this look a bit nicer, and I'd recently graduated from GIMP and purchased a sprite recently. I found this nice palette named Nynx 8, which I have fallen in love with, so I made a quick tile palette and a few new sprites for some objects. I know earlier in the video I said I wasn't going to focus on art and I was just going to focus on gameplay, but I just couldn't help myself. I need to think of a few more combinations and ways to use this mechanic in order to make a full game about it. I've also done a lot of writing for my game as well as planning out some general areas and world building in case anyone was wondering why progress is taking so long. I don't have a whole lot more to say, so I'm just going to leave this as a shorter video, and of course if you enjoyed this, please do subscribe, it's completely free and I'd really appreciate it.